just saw a movie called Atonement.
But you read the book.
I read the book.
I did as well.
The story is very simple. A child, a 13-year-old girl, played by, what's her name?
Saoirse Ronan,
who incidentally, let me say, plug,
I don't mind it.
plays a leading role in a movie that Marsha just executive produced. It'll be coming out soon.
Yes.
Miramax is releasing it. A movie called...
Not Miramax, the Weinsteins.
The Weinsteins, sorry.
And called...
Death-Defying Acts.
Yes.
With a couple of other people in it too.
Catherine Zeta-Jones and
Guy Pearce.
Yes.
Anyway, a child, she sees a sex act which she thinks is an attack. Then she sees something she thinks is a rape. She accuses somebody of doing it with disastrous results.
Yes.
The very essence of the movie is what motivated her to do this, and it's arguable. It's arguable.
It is a passionate love story between the daughter of the owner of the swell house and the housekeeper's son, who had been supported and educated by her father. And they fall madly in love. He is accused of a crime that he does not do. He is sent to prison, and then to get out of prison, he agrees to join the army. But the love story is passionate love story.
There's a scene where she goes and she jumps into the fountain to retrieve something.
Yes.
And she comes up, and talk about wet t-shirt contest. She comes up in this very diaphanous gown, absolutely, I thought she was nude. I thought it was the long shot, I thought she was nude. He looks at her and just absolutely...
freezes.
They want to get at each other, but there's this wall between them. And then when they finally suddenly do, they go in the library, and he absolutely, it's animal almost.
They're young,
but
passionate.
They're young and they're passionate, and they've been kept apart artificially by class boundaries.
Yes.
So that there's an enormous charge waiting to go off. It's a movie about storytelling. Not by chance, the soundtrack is mostly the sound of a typewriter. In fact, the whole thing is being written years later by this little girl, Brioni, who did the terrible deed. It is to me a bit of a cliche, but there are a number of movies in which whenever there's a young girl or a young kid in it who wants to be a novelist, you can be sure it'll turn out their novel is finally published at the end of the movie and is the story of that particular movie. I've seen that in numerous movies. The only one I can remember now is Kite Runner.
Did you like all that Dunkirk stuff?
There's a war sequence, and the evacuation from Dunkirk is the center of that. Mm-hmm. There is a famous shot. This is going to be one of the famous shots of movies that is in there. It's a 5-minute tracking shot. I must again compare it for a moment to what is the other famous tracking shot in American movies, which is the great one in Goodfellas that Scorsese did. Another 5-minute tracking shot, which I consider superior.
He goes through the bathroom, through the kitchen.
Ray Liotta goes through the kitchen, through doors, everything. Incredibly difficult to do. The shot in Atonement, it actually ends up where it started. It's a huge tour of the beach at Dunkirk as a piece in itself.
In fact, there are tracking shots in this whole movie. When we first meet the little girl, she leaves her bedroom and she walks up and down the corridors of this grand house. He uses it when she's a nurse in the hospital.
I think the screenplay, I might say, is brilliant. I thought it was one of the most suspenseful movies I've ever seen, the first 35 minutes of it. It was like a ticking time bomb to me, the whole thing. They move back and forth in time, incidentally. There's some strange little jumps. And it built up incredible tension. What's going to happen when this guy writes a letter? He writes 2 letters to the girl, one very respectful. The other one is in wild passion, a D.H. Lawrence letter. And this letter is delivered by mistake.
Yes.
And
which is ridiculous, of all the mistakes that are ever made in the thing. I mean...
This is also a reference to British novels of that sort. Trollope is filled with that.
It's ridiculous.
No, but the French Lieutenant's Woman, that is a device. And I think a wonderful device.
And yet he uses a device that I think if you were in novel writing 1, they would say, you know, you can't have that kind of dopey mistake. People don't do that. They don't pick up the wrong phone. They don't write the wrong letter. They don't deliver the wrong letter.
Stop, enough, I get your point.
You get it.
Really good writers can take license. This is about truth.
Yeah.
It's a story about the intricate connection of truth to fiction.
Yes.
This is quite separate to the actual melodramatic plot of the movie.
Yeah.
And the terrific ending is all to do with having written a thing that was not true.
Not true. That scene on the beach, which is everyone very, very happy. I was reminded of a story I like to tell about Marie Antoinette In the movie, as you know, and in real life, she got her head cut off. And the famous producer and studio head, Irving Thalberg, said, you can't end with the guillotine coming down like this. So he superimposed over that a scene of when she was a little girl and her mother has just told her that she is going to marry the future king of France, and she runs through the corridors, probably a tracking shot, of the palace and says, I'm going to France, I'm going to be the Queen of France, I'm going to be the Queen of France. And that is the last moment in the picture, which both made a comment on what you had seen as well as sort of cheered you up.
But there's almost every Hollywood ending like that. Do you see Paul Newman young again? In Butch Cassidy and Sundance. When the guy's shot, I know right away we're going to see a montage superimposed of them being young and happy. 7. Atonement is a swell movie. The one thing that may work against a tiny bit is it's too classic.
I guess I expected to feel more passionate about the movie, and I found it finally very, for me, without emotion. I don't know whether it should have a question mark after the title, whether it should have an exclamation part, because there is nothing that can atone for what she did.
I believe that is exactly what the movie says in the very end. You can't talk about the very end, but that, I believe, is exactly what the movie says.
Yes, but
that's exactly what the movie says.